All right, everyone, welcome back. Episode 1, Season 2 of Book with the Boys. I am Daniel Fennell, and we've got Jace Cook here as well. Jace, welcome back, mate. It's been about a year. It's good to be back in the podcast seat.
Has it been that long? Wow.
It's been a long time, mate.
It's been a
Too
long
long, I
time.
think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, no, mate, good to be back. And obviously, like we sort of said before, we've got a new format, and I think this will work really well, and really excited to sort of get cracking today.
Absolutely. That's it, mate. And as you said, the new format is each week we're going to do top 10s of wrestling. So could be a range of different things. Today we're going to do our top 10 personal best wrestlers of all time. So
Goats.
exactly right, the GOAT. So our thinking is we want to get everyone involved here. So it doesn't matter if you watch wrestling as a kid or watch it still today. Anyone can tune in every week, because I think a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about applies to anyone who likes it. So before we get started, mate, is there anything you wanted to touch on? I think we wanted to do some honourable mentions before we get to the top 10.
Yeah, look, it was hard to break down the top 10. So I thought, look, I sort of almost did a top 20. So I've got a few sort of honorable sort of mentions and sort of notable wrestlers that I sort of grew up with that sort of didn't hit the top 10. And I sort of wanted to sort of run through those, which
This
I
isn't
I
a
know
top
you've got as well.
20.
Yeah, I
It is
know
a
it's not
top 10.
I know,
So
but
you've got to leave some out, mate. Okay.
I did. And it was hard for me to
It
do
hurts,
so
but
because
doesn't it?
I think it was this close from him getting in, but Punk was my number 11.
Yep. Sam
And
Punk.
the only reason he didn't crack the top 10 is because he hasn't come back.
Yeah,
And
fair call.
I'm waiting for him to come back, and he just
Well,
hasn't done
I'm
it.
assuming he's going to be watching this at home. So,
He
Punk,
will. Yeah.
can you make sure you just act on that, please?
Yeah, exactly. So I've got Punk, I've got Eddie Guerrero, Edge, Orton, Lesnar, Bryan, and the Rhodes Brothers.
Yep.
Also put the Big Show in there as well, because I think for someone to have the career he's had with the size, he is 7'1", 7'2", 300 pounds for most of his, or probably more for most of his career. I mean, it's pretty special. And I've also put there as a bit of a left fielder, Colt Cabana.
Nice. Someone that I think a lot of our listeners wouldn't have heard of. So make sure you Google Colt Cabana when you get a chance.
So when I came back into wrestling in sort of 2011, him and Punk were the two that sort of got me back in. So it was kind of hard not to put him in, but I thought, for what it is, I think I'd leave him out. But yeah, they're probably the two that sort of got me back in. But yeah, they're the sort of honorable sort of mentions I wanted to sort of touch on pre the top 10 list.
Well, I must admit, mine are actually pretty similar to yours, mate. So I think we're going to have a similar top 10. It's interesting. You've got a couple in there that I haven't got, but my honorable mentions, I had Lesnar, obviously. He was 11 for me.
Yeah.
He's very, very close, and I still actually regret not putting him in, but that's okay. That's the way the penny falls. But I've got Daniel Bryan, Sam Punk, Kurt Angle. Didn't make my top 10, which is probably going to be controversial to a few of our loyal listeners. Mick Foley, Macho Man, Eddie, which was one of the hardest ones not to put in, and I also don't have Edge. So we got a pretty similar honorable mentions list there, but I reckon we get stuck in, mate. So I'll let you do the honors on the first episode back in season 2, starting at number 10. Now, just before we get started, I should mention we haven't talked about our top 10s, have we? We don't know what we've got, so we're doing this on the fly. Let's hope for the best. We could stuff it up a little bit, but we'll have a lot of fun doing it. So, Jace, get us started. Number 10 of your top 10 personal wrestlers of all time.
Well, I've gone someone that I think probably won't be in a lot of people's top 10s, and pretty similar to sort of the Big Show. He's had a pretty long career. I think it spans over, sort of 25, 30 years, and it's Kane.
Kane, the Big Red Machine.
The Big Red Machine, Kane, and sort of when I came into wrestling, probably around 2000, 2001, he was at the top. At that time, he was the sort of Big Red Machine character that he was, feuding with, Triple H and team with RVD and, doing that sort of character. And
we all remember the horrible moment he ripped off his mask, don't we?
And that was the one thing that burns. Like, you can ask my mum and dad. I remember watching wrestling Monday Night Raw. It was Triple H versus Kane for the title. Bischoff's put in a stipulation that if he doesn't win the title, he has to take off his mask. And I was like, there's no way he takes off his mask. He's got to win. Didn't win. Took off the mask, and it was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. I remember turning off the TV, screaming at the TV, and I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. It still burns in my mind today.
Yep.
That moment. So that was something that scarred me for a little while. But I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like
Definitely.
I said, 25 years within the business. Obviously had a few characters before Kane, but just the storytelling leading up. And I think I mentioned too, I did rewatch from sort of 96 onwards, up to
Yep.
about 98 at the moment. But watching the storyline and sort of the little intricate sort of seeds that were planted before his sort of debut at Bad Blood was one of the best things ever. So I think he deserves a top 10, no matter sort of what what list it is. I think he's definitely up there. So he's I've put some accomplishments for him. So I've got he's had 3 world titles. He's had 12 tag team title runs, 2 ICs. He's had a hardcore and also a 24/7 title run.
Oh, wow.
Recently over Truth.
As the mayor.
As the mayor, exactly. So he's had a incredible career and deserves a top 10.
Absolutely. No, that's a good one to kick us off. I must admit, I feel a little bit bad. I should have had him in my honorable mentions. I forgot to note him down. I will say right now that he hasn't made my top 10. So we've already got some controversy starting off here. So make sure you put some comments down if you're watching at home and let us know what you think. But no, that's a great way to start the list. I am going to go for position number 10, and he could have quite easily been a bit higher, but I've got Randy Orton at number 10. So someone who is just an all-round entertainer, I think. He was fantastic in the ring, as we all know, one of the best wrestlers ever. He's got some amazing matches out there for you to go and watch. One of my personal favorites against The Undertaker, and I know you love this one, Jace. We've talked about it on a previous podcast.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 21 versus The Undertaker, just a lead up to him being the Legend Killer. I think he was only like 24 or 25 at the time. Prime when I was a young kid just watching wrestling, and I just hated his guts so much because of what he was doing to Undertaker. And you go back and watch that match now, and when Cowboy Bob Orton comes in the ring and goes with the cast, you just think that the streak's over. But no, he obviously didn't get the job done. But that was one match. Just the evolution from, well, pardon the pun, but the evolution from him in Evolution as, the young up and coming, second, third generation star to who he is today as Apex Predator, just one of the absolute best on the microphone. I think it's a pure skill when you can be absolutely loved when you're a good guy in wrestling, but absolutely hated when you're a bad guy. For example, when, he was feuding with Triple H, another one of his amazing matches at Mania 25 as well. Pure example of how much you hated him, but then there's other times when you absolutely love him. So just a quick couple of matches I'd like to recommend for anyone who's got the network out there. SummerSlam 2011 versus Christian, unbelievable match. I believe that's the one where Christian won his first world title. Definitely go back and check it. Perfect example of how he can, he works with other good workers, but can make them look just as big as he was. And that's when Christian finally kind of, got out of the spotlight of Edge. And one other match is 2004 Backlash versus Mick Foley. Falls Count Anywhere, street fight. Unbelievable. And lastly, Mania 20 with him and Evolution versus The Rock and Mick Foley as well. So moving on, number 10's done. Number 9. Who have you got for number 9, Jace?
Number 9, I've put down Cena.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Late. Got him late. Did get
him in late.
Yep.
So back in sort of, I don't know if you remember this, Fernie, but back in, I think it was sort of 03, 04, Raw wasn't shown here in Australia.
Yep.
For about a year period, and it was only SmackDown, and that was when Cena was sort of taking
Fox
off
8.
as, the Doctor of Thugonomics, which I loved, and I still love to this day.
Yep. US title spinner belt. Google
US
that,
title,
everyone.
Yep, exactly. He's feuded with Carlito. He got stabbed by Zeus. Was it Zeus?
He did too.
Is that
Zeus? Yeah, I think you're right there.
I think that's right.
Got stabbed. Amazing.
Yeah. But no, it was a great character, and sort of morphed into what he is now. I remember one of my favorite wrestlers of sort of leading into 20 was Cena, and that was sort of his first title run when he beat the Big Show at Madison Square Garden. So that was one
WrestleMania
of
20.
That was one of my sort of favorites from sort of that period. And sort of when I sort of fell away, that's sort of when he did become what he become. And when I sort of slowly got back in sort of 2011, that was when he was feuding with The Rock. And I was probably one of the few that were actually on Cena's side during that period.
Yeah.
I was all for Cena in Miami when he had the loss, and
I was with you, mate. Don't worry.
And I'm still a big Cena fan to this day. Obviously, one of the biggest stars of the past 15 years for what he's done, and had an amazing run. Fun fact and quick story: I got tickets to, I can't remember what year it was. I think it might have been like 07 or 08 to the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards.
Yep. Did you get slimed?
I did.
Oh,
Cena was host. And we're waiting in the back, me and my cousin Amy, and I think
Shout out to Amy.
yeah, shout out Amy. And he was there, and I remember he looked at me, and I smiled at him, gave him a thumbs up, and he came over, and I touched his arm, and his arm was probably the size, probably bigger than my leg. Like, it was one of the biggest arms you'll ever see.
As big as your arms now, or slightly bigger?
No, a little bit bigger. So, but no, fun fact, I touched Stina's arm in
There you
07.
go.
So there you go. But no, deserve the top 10 for mine, definitely. 16 world titles, 5 runs at the US title, tag team, won 2 Royal Rumbles as well. So, Stina, number 9.
Beautiful. Well, I think Cena will probably feature in my top 10 a little bit later, but I didn't have him as deep as number 9. At number 9, I had the game Triple H. So again, this is personal top 10s, but I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time, 14-time world champion, I believe. Possibly, in my opinion, one of the best heels I've ever seen, one of the best bad guys ever. Talking about times when, you were just starting to get into wrestling. I remember back in the early 2000s when he'd been hand-given the new world heavyweight title by Eric Bischoff, and he kind of took off as the number one bad guy on Raw and led Evolution. I just remember thinking to myself as a young kid, like, I could not hate anyone more. I talked about how Orton could make your blood boil, but goodness me, I just absolutely hated Triple H. And it's only as you get older, you learn things, and you learn about behind the scenes and stuff like that. You find out, he's married to Steph McMahon, and he's been probably gifted a little bit from Vince and the family, but I think that all definitely gets washed away with how hard he's worked. Some of his matches, if you look back, one of my favorite matches of all time, one of the earliest matches of wrestling I ever watched in my life was his match against Shawn at SummerSlam 2002, Shawn's return match, when you actually thought that an unsanctioned match was generally them having a fight, and that's what it was. And just the storytelling between how they were best friends in DX, and that sort of stuff is just incredible. And obviously he's working with one of the greatest of all times. But you go back and watch that match on the network. Then you go to the polar opposite end. You got his match against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30, which was one of the best storylines I've ever. It's definitely the best storyline in modern wrestling, I think. Apart from Cena versus Punk, their rivalry, but something like that to open WrestleMania, incredible match again against another fantastic wrestler, Daniel Bryan. But I just think the reason that he definitely deserves top 10 is not only he's been in the main event for a long time, but if you look at his hilarious side when he was in DX starting out in the late 90s, all the way to his serious bad guy side in the early 2000s, and now he's evolved into that corporate character, which is both real life and in wrestling. And I just think it shows that not only, again, pardon the pun, the evolution of the character, but from where he's been and where he's come, he constantly reinvents himself. So number 9, Triple H, the game. Now, number 8, Jace, who have we got number 8?
Number 8. Again, probably a little bit of a controversial one where I've left him down the list, a little bit later in the list, is The Rock. So
this will stir the pot.
So I've got The Rock at number 8. But obviously his career, like I said, I've sort of gone back and watched from 96, and that's sort of when he did come in, and just to see from that point, from where he started to sort of obviously where he ended up was quite an incredible sort of journey that is so good to sort of see back in time. His evolution on the microphone and his promos and his confidence, it was like week on week, it just get better and better and better. But look, like I said, since I've sort of been watching from when I was young, he's been a star. He's been on top. When I sort of first come in 01, 2000, he was at his prime. So really, when you sort of think about it, you only really saw him on top for 2 years.
Yeah,
and he was gone.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's probably why he was a bit late on the list for mine. But I mean, for his impact in that sort of short span of time is pretty incredible. Rock versus Hogan 02 Mania, not the greatest technical match, but incredible sort of feeling from crowd storytelling, everything leading up to it was unbelievable. Did see him live in 02 as well from at Colonial Stadium, or I think it was a Telstra at the time, can't remember.
Was it him versus Lesnar versus
Triple H?
Triple H, that's right. Yep.
So saw him live, and stemming from that, so at the back end of his run in 03, that heel character, Hollywood Rock,
unbelievable,
incredible stuff. Like rock concerts with absolute best. I mean, I could watch them all day.
SummerSlam 02 versus Brock.
Yeah, again, awesome match. So there's so many, especially on the way out, like what he sort of gave back to the business was incredible as well. And his sporadic appearances, as I said, yeah, Mania 28, 29, sort of that run was great, and his matches against Punk as well, which at the Rumble was a good one too. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, one of the biggest mainstream stars at the moment, and sort of the impact he had was pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty good leading, because at number 8, and this this really hurts me that I put him here, but I could not put him in, and I really didn't want to, I must admit, because I know this is a personal top 10. I put him in because I think he has to be in there, but I don't necessarily agree that he should be. But I've got the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, at number 8. Now, I personally don't think it's a hard one, because in wrestling wise, he was one of the worst. If we really think about it, in terms of his ability inside the ring, one of the worst. But in terms of a persona and an actual figure in wrestling, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. So that got him at number 8 in my list. If you go back and look, he's the reason that honestly wrestling is as popular as it is today. We just have to be completely honest with that. The biggest star of the 80s. And then one of the most incredible things is if you go back and look, he was one of the biggest stars. Everyone in the world knows the name Hulk Hogan. Everybody. Doesn't matter if you don't like wrestling, you do like wrestling, you think of wrestling, you know Hulk Hogan. So for that reason, he made number 8. Despite the fact, if you go back and watch some of his matches, he wasn't great in the ring, but just think, I put him in here because of more of the moments. I didn't really focus on the matches. So you think about the moment when he slammed Andre, won the title at WrestleMania 3, I think it was, one of the most incredible feats of strength at the time ever. The whole world went crazy. But then to think that he was champion for, years and years in a row, and then to move from, the WWE to WCW and create the NWO and become a bad guy was unheard of. And honestly, it forced wrestling into mainstream popularity. And for that reason, his effect on the business, I've got him at number 8. Personally, not a massive fan of the man as a human being, or his matches in general, but you can't really discredit what he did for the business and what he did for people like us. Who knows if we would be watching WWE today if it wasn't for someone like him. So I had him at number 8. And again, if you haven't seen it, go and watch his match at WrestleMania 18 versus The Rock. It is one of the, was it 18? Yeah, it was 18. Yeah, it is honestly one of the most incredible crowd reactions I've ever seen. Definitely haven't seen anything like that for the last 15 years. So go back and watch that match. But yes, the Hulkster slides in at number 8 for me. So
can't forget his TNA run as well.
Yeah.
One of the better ones.
One of the better ones. We'll just discredit that now. We don't mention TNA on this show. All right, Jace, number 7.
All right, number 7. I've got Ric Flair.
Wow, that is low.
Yeah. So
talk us through it.
And reason why is because, like I said, so I sort of got back in early 2000s, and that was sort of obviously past his prime, 20 years past his prime almost. But it was sort of the re-debut of Flair. Like, I didn't really know who he was when he did come out and was announced as the co-owner of WWF at the time, and sort of went through the draft and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of had to learn who he was without the internet and without, just seeing him week to week. So it didn't sort of have a massive impact on me until sort of Evolution sort of become what it became, and you could just sort of see, and you sort of learn a bit more about him, and everything like that. So, but then as I've sort of gone back and watched, and everything about Ric Flair is so special, and sort of what he does from a promo standpoint, but also obviously in the ring, and it showed in his last match with Shawn Michaels at 24, which, if you haven't seen that, that's
unbelievable stuff.
One of the most, and even the lead up to that as well, the stipulations around, I'm not sure if you remember, but they sort of put in that he had to win every match or he'd be done. And it was just sort of that story behind it, and sort of leaning into that was the last match. And yeah, it was pretty incredible. And for what he's done again over the span of what, sort of 40 years almost.
Yeah, nearly 40 years. Yeah.
So yeah, incredible stuff. And the 16-time world champ.
Absolutely.
As well. 2-time Hall of Famer.
I won't try and give him a woo.
No, I was going to as well.
But nah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Now, I've got number 7. We've already talked about him. For me, number 7, I've got The Rock. So for that reason as well, a lot of people will say that he should be higher. But again, the key thing that I think you pointed out earlier is that he didn't really have a lot of time on, at the top. He was only there for that 2 to 3 to 4 year period. But the thing is the funny part, I think, is that everyone remembers him as one of the greatest to ever be involved in it. But that just proves how important he was in that 2 or 3 year period. If it wasn't for Rock versus Austin, I guess Austin versus McMahon, WWE be dead. It was such a massive thing. His trilogy of matches at WrestleMania with Austin, just unbelievable. Austin Rock 17, one of my top 5 matches of all time. Austin versus Rock at 19. I watched that match 100 times. I used to rent WrestleMania 19 from Blockbuster like it was going out of fashion, and I just replay that match over and over and over. One of the absolute greatest. Another match, if you haven't seen it and you want to see some real violence that you probably won't see these days, is his match versus Mankind at WrestleMania 99. Sorry, not WrestleMania 99, Royal Rumble 99. The I Quit match. Scary stuff in that match, but yeah, Rock slides in it at number 7 for me. I think we've already talked about him enough. One of the greatest of all time. Jace, number 6.
Number 6, I've got Kurt Angle.
Wow. Yep.
So again, sort of a lot of my top 10 are based on sort of when I came in and sort of the impact they had on me as a kid. So when I sort of started, this was sort of the SmackDown period, so the 0204 era where he obviously was on top. I think it was just after, I think 03 was the match with Brock at Mania, and then he went into the GM role.
Yep.
And I remember his character. Like, I just love that character for some reason. I don't know. It just sort of caught my attention. I just really, really enjoyed him. And then when he sort of come back, and I think he feuded with Guerrero after that, and then he had his match at Mania 20, and just sort of throughout that period, he was just always someone that you could just see his intensity, you could just see his match quality. Like, he was just, even back then, for me seeing a wrestler like Angle, you just knew he was a star, and everything he sort of did up to that point. And then even like at the end of his run during ECW, when that sort of sort of come back into the fold, he sort of fine-tuned his character to just be this just animal in the ring, like had his mouth guard, brought his gold medals to the ring. Like, it was just like that was just awesome as well. And I remember his one night stand match in 06 was one of the better ones that, if you haven't seen, go back and watch, because and then the crowd as well sort of made it too. So so everything evolved, and I mean, his last run wasn't as good as maybe it should have been, and
no.
I feel like he's probably not respected as well, obviously, with everything happening this week as well, where he's released. But anyway, look, over the time, like, he's one of the better wrestlers out there, and probably should be higher, to be honest. But comes in number 6 for mine.
Yep, no, that's exactly right, and that's why we're doing this list. He didn't make my top 10, and that's because it is a personal opinion, and I'll probably get scolded on Facebook for that. But no, one of the greatest. I must just a quick comment on Angle. His matches with Cena in 06, that run of matches, one of my favorite periods of time ever. You're right. When he was the wrestling beast, it was just something else. So number 6 for me, and you're not going to be happy with how low he is, but I've got Jericho at 6. Again, Chris Jericho at number 6. This is a personal thing. When I was a young kid, you might not believe this. When I was a young kid, when I was first getting into it, I just had nothing for Jericho. Like, he just didn't do it for me. I don't know why. He just didn't appeal to me. I thought he was a bit boring. Maybe because I didn't watch enough of him, and maybe because he did feud a little bit with Cena, and I was the biggest Cena fan of all time. So anyone who wrestled against great man John was just dead to me. So no, but in all honesty, he's someone who, over the years as I've grown up, he's become one of my all-time favorites, and that's why I've got him at 6 in my list. He's just incredible. Like, his stuff, he's one of the greatest of all time on the microphone. If you go back and watch his stuff in WCW, for example, when he was going through the 1,000 moves that he was doing, his 1,000 holds, that stuff's just hilarious. And you move on to when he came into WWE and debuted, in front of all those people with The Rock there, the countdown to the Y2J. It's just amazing stuff. And not only is he great on the microphone, but he's one of the best in the ring at storytelling and making you really involved. Couple of quick mentions of matches. His match against HBK at WrestleMania 19, just one of the best WrestleMania matches ever. I think it definitely gets kind of slid under the carpet a little bit for some reason. People don't like to think of it as one of the best ever, but I implore you to go back and watch it and just how good it was. One personal thing I did see, and it was actually today because it is the 20-year anniversary of this moment, but his match against Triple H on Raw
Yes, I
in
saw that too.
April 17th, 20 years ago today, as we're recording this,
Yep.
for the world title, where he beat Triple H because Earl Hebner was feuding with Hunter at the time, and he was meant to be suspended, and he came in because was it Kyoto was down or one of the other refs was down, so he came in and then Hunter pushed him over, and Jericho got up, did the line salt, did the fast count 1, 2, 3 really quickly, and the crowd just went crazy. And
Insane.
go back and watch that clip on YouTube, because it's just another time in the world when wrestling was just going through the roof. So moments like that, and then now we all know he's obviously moved on to All Elite Wrestling, where he hasn't stopped. He's unbelievable in the ring still for a 50-year-old man. He's the best on the mic there is at the moment. Like, I personally think he's the best there is at the moment on the mic still. One of the greatest of all time. Probably still too low at 6, but that's just where I've got him. All right, so we're going to move into the top 5.
Top 5.
Chase, number 5. Who have you got?
So number 5, I've got HBK. Shawn Michaels at number 5. So again, similar story to Flair. Sort of when he came back in 2002, he actually re-debuted in the NWO, if you can remember, Bernie. Nash.
Yes, I do remember. Very, very vaguely.
Yeah, so Nash introduced this new member of the NWO, and out comes HBK, and I had no idea who it was. Literally no idea. And again, I think it sort of tells a bit of a story to where things are at now, because again, didn't have internet, didn't have sort of means to actually find out who this was. I had to just learn week by week who Shawn Michaels was, and that was easily told to a 7-year-old to, where it was in 2002. Like it's just night and day to where the storytelling is now. But I sort of, again, slowly learned to know who he was. And obviously, like you said, the Triple H match at SummerSlam 2002 was incredible. Wrestled in G, incredible match.
Yeah.
Watched his first title win back in the Chamber in 2002 as well, where he won the big gold belt. And just other classic matches throughout sort of that initial period and initial return with I just said Jericho, Cena. Remember there was a 60-minute Iron Man match in London from memory on Raw, which was one of the best you'll see. Obviously Triple H, Flair, and the last couple of matches he had with Taker at Mania was just one after the other, which is pretty incredible. And I think we told the story before on the podcast, but at the G we dwindled our way down to the entranceway, and we actually touched his hand. I touched his arm. I can't really touch.
We do have a video of that.
We do actually have a video of that. So hold a special place in our hearts for sure. And fun fact as well, when I was doing a bit of research on Wikipedia, he's had, believe it or not, 11 matches of the year plus a match of the decade with Flair. So that is
incredible. 11 matches. That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's unheard of, isn't it?
And then the match of the decade. So
yeah,
that just sort of tells you the quality of matches and the sort of the wrestler that he was. And again, sort of the initial run was good, but I think when he came back in 2002 to sort of 2009 was the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I don't have him at 5, which probably means you know where he's going to be. He's definitely going to be a little bit higher. But coming in at number 5, my personal favorite of all time, the great man, John Cena. He comes in at 5 for me because he's the reason that I got into wrestling. He's the first. I think he's definitely like the first wrestler that I saw as, bigger than life. Like I obviously you watch all these old wrestling DVDs. I used to hire like some of the earlier stuff, but so you've seen other people, but Cena was like that first one where it was like, wow, this is incredible. Like just the way he carried himself, his bigger than life persona, not to mention like he was this huge man, like just jacked, but the way that he came out and, like you said, I remember him as a doctor of thugonomics. I thought he was the coolest person in the world. Like I was like, this dude is just the greatest, right? Like I just wanted to be him. He was just so appealing. He was hilarious, really, really good rapper on the mic. And then to see him develop into who he is today is basically like he turned into the Super Cena. He's essentially a superhero now when he wrestles, and nothing can beat him. But one of the greatest of all time, like you said, 16 world titles. The thing that I think he gets really, discredited for is everyone says he's only got the 5 moves, and he's not a great actual wrestler. But if you go back and watch some of his matches, like he's so underrated. Like his match versus CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011 is my favorite match of
Unbelievable.
all time. Like number one match of all time. I'll
Yep.
hold that till I die.
Yep.
I don't think I'll ever see a better match than it. And you know, like he might not be the best wrestler, and yeah, Punk was incredible. But if you go back and watch that, he did some moves that if you just think off the top of your head, you wouldn't think he could do. And you know, if it wasn't for him, some other match is like, oh, his match against RVD at One Night Stand 06, like that was just incredible. The way that he just carried himself, and he always knew his wrestling IQ is just incredible. So a couple of quick mentions, even in recent years, match against AJ at the Royal Rumble 2017, his match against Brock's first comeback match. Go back and watch these matches. That was Extreme Rules, I think. These are just incredible matches. And I think not only, we all know that he's like one of the best on the microphone ever and just this bigger than life persona. But yeah, I've got him at 5 because I just absolutely loved him as a kid. And he's the reason I got into wrestling. So moving on, number 4.
Number 4 for me, who you've already mentioned, is Triple H. So he's come a little bit higher for me just because, as you said, sort of his run as that heel 02 to sort of 04, 05 was one of the best you'll see in sort of modern wrestling history. Sort of funnily enough, my first actual memory of watching wrestling was. It was 99. I've actually rewatched this moment. It was the night after Mankind won the title, and DX introduced him, and they come out and then turned on him, which was my first. And I had no idea like what was going on, and I was like, what the hell is this? And I was just sort of hooked from that moment. So it's probably a moment that, and probably reason why he's a little bit higher because he does like he's one of the first wrestlers I've ever seen ever. So. And yeah, like I said, so that run as the heel from 02 to 05, incredible, formed Evolution, obviously a part of DX. So he's been a part of these stables and these moments in wrestling history, which will go down as one of the sort of the best ever. So for someone to be on top for that long, obviously still be in the spot that he's in the moment, still doing what he's doing with NXT and sort of moving the business forward. And I think when obviously Vince sort of steps down and eventually does go, I think it's
passes away.
Very, very capable hands, and pretty excited to see where that sort of leads. And then the match 28, I think that's probably one of my favorites is the 28 Hell in a Cell, Taker, Triple H.
Yeah, absolutely.
With HBK as a special guest referee in that spot where Michaels hits a super kick, and into the pedigree, and then the kick out, like, no words. Like, well, I thought it was definitely over then, but yeah, again, one of the best matches you'll see. But yeah, countless moments, countless matches. Comes at number 4.
Beautiful, mate. And just a quick one on that. Remember, we did know that match we saw at the MCG, they did that exact same spot. Remember, they did the exact same spot.
Yeah, they did. Actually. Yeah.
Remember, we figured that out after because on the night we'd probably had a couple quiet drinks, which had
a bit hazy.
Fuzzy, a bit hazy, yeah. But the next day we did rewatch that and realize that they copied that spot. So that's just a cool note for everyone to go out and have a look at there. So number 4 for me, I'm not going to talk about him in too much length because we've already mentioned it. But I had Flair at number 4, Ric Flair. Now again, I completely understand we definitely didn't see the best of him, but I must admit I've done a fair bit of research on Flair and gone back and watched a lot of his matches. For example, I mean, it's a bit old school, but if you go back and watch some of his matches versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in the late 80s, he had a trilogy of matches, some of the best matches ever. Those matches will hold up today. Like, it's so different going back and watching wrestling from 40 years ago now, and it's just so different to what it is today, and it's still even a lot different to what it was 15 years ago when we were really into it. But some of those matches just incredible. Like, not to mention, like, I think he's the second greatest actual wrestler in like ever, behind someone I'm going to mention soon. Definitely one of the greatest on the microphone. Again, didn't get to see enough of him because he's a lot older than us, but I just remember the times back when, he was in his mid-50s still wrestling for, the Intercontinental title or in a tag team with Batista. His ring work and his mic work still held up incredibly well then. Just a quick mention, when he took the backdrop off the ladder at WrestleMania 21, Money in the Bank, like he's like 55, 56 at this age, and he just like falls off a 20-foot ladder onto, like, just ridiculous. You'd think he should be broken in half. But one quick, since you had some key points you'd been researching, he actually broke his back in a plane crash in his early 20s before he'd even become a real star. So there's something.
Also used to be 330 pounds too.
Yep, he was enormous. Absolutely. Go back and Google Ric Flair, like, as a 20-year-old. He was huge. But yeah, he broke his
Incredible.
back in a small plane crash. I'm pretty sure couple of people may not have survived in that plane crash as well. So crazy to think that he, came back from that and became who he was today. So moving on from number 4, the top 3. I think our top 3 might be similar. I've got someone in the top 3 who you won't have, but let's run through who your number 3 is.
Number 3, which to be honest, he could easily be number 1, is the Undertaker. So look, so I never saw the Dead Man character until obviously Mania 20. But I remember playing it on games. I didn't know what it was. And, obviously he was a biker character at the time, which was awesome as well. I think it was heel, had matches against Jeff Hardy. I remember on Raw for the title, and the ladder match was incredible. And until the lead up to Mania 20, I didn't really sort of click with the Undertaker. I didn't really understand the character. And then sort of, when Kane buried him, and then, I remember always waiting on Raw to, for Kane's segment, because I knew the Taker would sort of do something, whether it's the gong or, bolt or I don't know, whatever it was. And I was just so invested and couldn't wait for Mania 20. And that entrance when Paul Bearer comes back, and you got the Druids, and then there's Taker, and like incredible moment, and I was sort of bought in from that point, as a big Taker fan, and even seeing Taker live. Like I remember we went to the 04 Return of the Dead Man tour at Rod Laver, and just his entrance and just the feeling that you get for when you see someone like that, and just the awe around just the person. Like it was just just one of the most sort of just I don't know, just a really really influential sort of wrestler and character, and obviously the size he is, like 7 foot, well probably not 7 foot, but 6'10", 6'11", 250, 300 pounds, and again super durable, 30-year career, obviously been around the world, and still doing it, and looking like he could probably extend his career a little bit longer now. So one of the best ever. He's had multiple title reigns. He's actually, funnily enough, which I didn't realize, he actually had a hardcore title reign in 01. Believe it or not.
Really? I did not know he ever held the hardcore title.
Believe it or not. Yep. So he's held the hardcore title. He's only held he's held the world title 7 times, tag 6 times, and then the hardcore title once. So he beat at Vengeance in 01. So fun fact. But yeah, definitely top 3. Easy. Could have been 1. But that's my number 3.
Beautiful. Well, I have number 3. I have the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Again, I think he's, in terms of mainstream wrestling, he's definitely the best ever at the craft. That's just my opinion. Obviously, early to late 90s when he was, in his first run, he was incredible. I know back then his size was probably a bit small considering what they were pushing at the time. But the fact that he broke through and some of his matches with Bret Hart, just unbelievable matches. Iron Man match that he had with Bret Hart at WrestleMania 12 was one of the greatest matches of all time. But I just thought that, I always loved HBK. I just thought, like I said, one of the first matches I ever saw was his match against Triple H at SummerSlam. And from that moment, I just fell in love with him. It's funny to think that he was a bad guy. He was a heel in the 90s and late 90s and early 90s, because he was just so lovable as a good guy. It was impossible not to get around him. Like that match, the Elimination Chamber 2002, the first one, when he won the big gold belt, his return. Fun fact, he only held the world title, I think, 4 or 5 times, which seems really strange for someone who, is one of the greatest ever to only hold the main belt at, 4 or 5 times, maybe even less. I haven't got the exact numbers, just crazy. But just a quick mention, my second favorite match of all time versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. Go back and watch that match. There's nothing like it these days. Absolutely nothing like it. Like I haven't been invested in a match like that for 10 years or so now. So go back, watch that. His match against Austin Mania 14, which allowed Austin to become who he became. Just go back. One of the greatest of all time. One of the best on the microphone, but again, in the ring, he could make anyone, he could wrestle a broomstick, as everyone says. So HBK, number 3. Now we're going to get down to the last 2. So we'll go with number 2 first, because I think we might have the same number 1. I'm just assuming. But who did you have for number 2, Jace?
So my number 2 is Chris Jericho. Which, look, to be honest with you, it's probably been the last 2 years where he's leaped. Like he, to be honest, probably wasn't even in my top 10, which is a little bit surprising, to most. But um, similar story to you. Like I didn't really click with Jericho. Like I think I think you're right because he was a heel sort of 02, 03, 04, went away, came back. His character was good. He was sort of didn't click. And then obviously, like I said, I fell away sort of 07, back in 11, and that's when he was coming back and was doing those little vignettes. Forget what it was, but it was this.
He'd come out and he wouldn't talk.
Wouldn't talk, but yeah, it was some
Very
what he
weird.
called himself. But yeah, I was again super invested, and then I found myself loving him from that sort of point on. Had matches with Punk. I mean, I was obviously a massive Punk fan, so that match at 28 was incredible. And again, obviously King of Reinvention. So yeah, every time he came back, he'd try something new, whether it's a list, the stuff with Owens, and obviously, like I said, his most recent run, which he has changed the wrestling business forever. What he's done with New Japan and obviously now AEW, and just every single week, even now when he's on commentary, like he is almost my all-time favorite just from these last 2 years, and just an incredible wrestler, both on a promo and as you said, technically as well. His storytelling is unbelievable. So mate, that's number two.
Yeah. Alrighty, so for my number two, and again, Jericho definitely could have been higher for me as well. Go back, if you haven't seen, anyone who's watching or listening, if you haven't seen any of his stuff in AEW, just YouTube Chris Jericho, All Elite Wrestling commentary. Even I watched him during the week in commentary. He's better than anyone there is now. And it's like the first time I've ever done it. So just a quick note to do that. But just quickly, number two, we've already talked about him. The Undertaker, I had at number two. One of the greatest big men of all time, standing 2 meters tall, 130 kilos is what they listed him at, which is just, I can't even that's like having Aaron Sandlands, right? Like essentially that's how big he was. It's just ridiculous. He was a big man and one of the greatest. I always viewed him as like this mythical being, which they talk about him. Like he was like, he wasn't real. He was like, he's the only thing that I think that like in wrestling that you almost think like, is this real? Is this fake? Like what's going on here? Like the smoke and mirrors were just incredible. I used to love when they do the lightning bolt as a kid. Like I just thought that was real. I thought he could like summon lightning for some reason, which sounds stupid, but that's just how good he was. But like the thing is his matches are unforgettable. Like we've got the streak. Everyone knows Hulk Hogan. Everyone knows Undertaker's streak. But goodness me, some of his matches, like his 2 WrestleMania matches, HBK, WrestleMania 25, 26, 2 of the best matches of all time. He always delivered, like his feuds with HBK, Triple H, obviously Kane. He had some amazing feuds with Edge, Cena as well. Like from the start when he first came in till the end, now he has just been, there's obviously when he got older, really old, the last couple of years, he's had a couple of average times, but you don't really care because he's just one of the greatest of all time. Personally, I just thought he was larger than life. He really drew me in, and one of the biggest parts of why I actually still love wrestling, because it takes it from he was really good in the ring, but it really does bring that entertainment factor in. And just go back and watch every match he always delivered. Every WrestleMania match always delivered. So number one. Now I reckon we'll talk about this one together, because I reckon we're both gonna have the same number one. So should we just say it at once? 1, 2, 3.
Hey! Give me the goddamn
Stone Cold. Yep.
Absolutely.
Easy. I'll let you start, mate.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the biggest influences for mine. Sort of growing up. I mean, it was hard, and again, it was hard to sort of go. When he sort of ended his career in 03. Again, very very similar to The Rock. Like I had maybe 2 years really to watch him sort of week in, week out, and to have an effect the way he's had an effect on myself and obviously the wrestling business. Just sort of shows how good he was. Again, with the countless amounts of moments that he's had, whether it's in 98 with Tyson, the beer truck, his turn, going with the Alliance, I mean, not the greatest thing, but I mean, massive moment, Mania 17. And then even his sort of last run up to sort of Mania 19. But every week he come out, you get the biggest pop, best crowd reactions. You know, there's still chance of what every time like someone speaks and does a promo in the ring, like, you know, and he hasn't wrestled in what 17 years. And
Yeah.
you know, he'd be on top of everyone's list for you know, hands down. So yeah, so mate, he's an easy top one for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one thing that when I was thinking about who my number one was, I knew straight away I was going to go with Stone Cold. But the reason that I want to put it out there is if you think about it, there's no argument that can be made that he shouldn't be number one. There's a lot of really, really, really good wrestlers we talked about today on this episode, but you can't argue he's not number one. Saved if it wasn't for him, there'd be no WWE, guaranteed. Like, it's that simple. His feud with Vince McMahon in the late 90s and the Attitude Era, a lot of the people listening today will remember that and know about it. It's just one of the greatest of all time. The way that he reinvented himself when he first came in WCW, all the way from the Ringmaster to ECW, to then WWE, stunning Steve Austin. And then, he had his 316 moment when he beat Jake the Snake, to Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's just unbelievable. The 316 shirt it's not a wrestling shirt. It's a pop culture shirt, really. I mean, if you think about back in those days in the late 90s, like we weren't around then really, but from what I've heard, you couldn't walk around in, mainstream in America and not see one. Like, it was just the biggest merch seller ever. It's been proven that there's no one that's ever come close to selling as much merch as him. And that's because he still sells it now. Like, one of the best moments I've had is I was lucky enough when I was in LA last year. I was walking down the Hollywood Walk of Fame and I found Vince McMahon's star and I was wearing a Stone Cold shirt. So got a photo of that. And that's what I mean. Like, it still rings true today. He was really, really good in the ring as well. Go back and watch some of his matches, like his match against The Rock at Mania 17, one of the greatest of all time matches. His match against Bret Hart, where he didn't tap out. He passed out in a pool of his own blood. Just unbelievable stuff. His match against HBK when he came in WrestleMania 14, and then, his match against The Rock again at Mania 19. The one thing that the key thing is all those matches were WrestleMania. Yeah. Like, his matches just were the best of all time, on the biggest stage in front of the most people. There's no one bigger. He's just the amount of moments he created, amount of memories he's created for thousands and thousands of people around the world. And it's crazy. You see him come out on Raw or WrestleMania occasionally once in a blue moon now, and he still gets the biggest reaction of the year. It's just insane. But no, I'm happy that we both agreed on the same number one. I didn't really think we wouldn't, but there you go. So there's our top 10, mate. There's our top 10 of all time. I think we've created a pretty good discussion here, I think, for the listeners. So what do you reckon? Should we get anyone who's out there now, if you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, go on Instagram, have a listen to the podcast app or Spotify, whatever it is. Leave us some comments. We want to reply to some people and create a bit of a discussion.
Get everyone's top 10 down and yeah, absolutely get involved.
Yeah, and that's what our new format is about. Our new format is about getting everyone involved. It doesn't matter if you might not know what All Elite Wrestling is now, but everyone knows who their top 10 favorites of all time is. So the new format is we're going to do it every week. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to see your comments, who your top 10 is. Roast us, ask us questions. We'll get them in for the next episode. But yeah, Jace, good episode back to start off with. You got any final comments, mate, or?
No, mate. I think pretty solid top 10 for both of us there. Yeah, again, like I said, no brainer with Austin on top. But mate, very excited to sort of get into next week, mate. I think we have decided what we are going to do for next week.
You want to let everyone know we have decided?
One of my favorite things is the entrances. So I've said, look, let's do a top 10 entrance, similar obviously to what we've done today, and sort of release that next week. So that's something we're going to do for next week's podcast, and that'll be consistent. So week by week, we'll sort of discuss what we're going to do and the lead up and get everyone to sort of get involved throughout the week before our show. So, we're going to do entrances next week.
Beautiful. So that's it, everyone. So next Sunday, top 10 entrances of all time. Throughout the week, just put some comments. If there's something you want to see, whether it be top 10 matches, top 10 shows of all time, let us know. The more involvement we can. We're doing this for everyone to get involved. So, Jace, thanks, mate. Appreciate your time. We'll make sure we change up what wrestling shirts we're wearing again next week.
Yeah, exactly right.
But yeah, no, that's all from me. Great first episode back, season 2.
Awesome stuff, mate. We'll see you next week.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. Remember to like us, follow us, hit us up on Twitter at BIWTB podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and Book It With The Boys on Facebook. And this will be on YouTube as well. So until then, we'll see you next week. Thanks, mate.